Show Toddler Tribe. I am so excited to have Tia Slightham here with us today. She is a similar kind of me. And those are my favorite people to bring onto the show. We both have a background in education. We both have an extension of working with parents and families, and we both care deeply about the early years of children's lives and how it sets them up for success. Welcome, Tia.
Welcome, or thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. And like you, talking to people in the same niche brings up so many great conversations. So I'm excited to get into it.
Absolutely. So I kind of just want to start with like go forward. Our kindergarten days, the teaching of them. What was your favorite part about kindergarten?
Oh my gosh, I have so many favorite parts. I know so many people in the world will say, "You are a saint. You taught kindergarten." And teachers would say, "I could never teach those early years." And for me, there's nothing better than the early years. I feel like as a parent myself to two teen boys now, the early years are your years where you get to help in a positive way mold them and bring to light for them what's to come. And so if you can create an amazing first experience for these kindergarten students, from being in the classroom and understanding how to manage themselves in a positive way socially and academically, you're opening up so many doors for them. And so I think one of the things I really loved about my kindergarten students is that they love you more than anything in this world. And they often, like parents will say, if I give too many boundaries, or I'm trying to give them too much guidance, they're not going to love me. And parents feel like they have to please their kids all the time. But the same thing goes in the classroom. It doesn't work that way. Our kids actually flock to the boundaries and the security and the consistency and us following through because it shows them love. And that year after year for me in my classroom was proven. And after working with thousands of parents, it's proven over and over again that kids really love you because you love them and give them boundaries.
Oh, absolutely. You know, you talked about something that I call the hang the moon syndrome, where at that age, even younger, because I was in preschool and moved into kindergarten, they think you hang the moon,
Oh,
right?
wow.
You are the everything. And that comes with a lot of what you just said, the kind of that love and that cushiness and that cuddliness and that great energy between you. But it also comes with a lot of responsibility because you are essentially the architect of those early years and you get to design it. And
Mhm.
I know for me in kindergarten, when parents would say to me, "I'm so glad you're their first teacher," every single time I'd get the warm fuzzies. And then right after that, I'd get, "Oh, they don't know that they actually are and were."
Mhm. They don't. You are so right. The biggest teacher that our kids will ever have will be their parents, and most parents are never aware of that.
So, was that kind of a motive? I know for me, it was a motivating factor to move into a new way of teaching because I wanted parent education to become paramount and priority and something that people talked more about. What was your moment where you said, working with parents and families matters to me?
It's an important, I think, thing to think about, like our why and what we do in life, and what brings us to our motivation and drive to want to do the things we do day in and day out. For me, I always wanted to work with kids. I always wanted to be a mom. I always wanted to babysit from the time I could even consider that. And I knew that kids were really, really important to me. And when I became a mom myself, I was no longer in the classroom, but I realized my home was my classroom and that I was parenting like I was teaching to some degree. And I would go to these music classes and gymnasium classes, and these parents would be complaining about their kids and moaning about their kids not sleeping and how they fight all the time and the tantrums and the this and the that. And I got to thinking, why did I enjoy my classroom so much year after year with 30 different 5-year-olds every single year? I mean, it wasn't cookie cutter. And why was I enjoying my boys so much and loving the moments we had together? And I knew in that at that point, there was this aha moment of my kids aren't perfect, my students weren't perfect, I'm not perfect, but something I am doing is different than what those parents are doing. And I felt super driven to figure out how I could, piece and package this all together to show parents how they could learn those same skills to create the life they want with their kids, because ultimately helping the parents, I'm helping the kids.
Absolutely. Ugh. Yeah. Oh, the similarities do not stop. I ran a very cool babysitters club when I was a teenager, and I'm dating myself with that book series, although I think it's been re-released, so maybe there's some youngers who are getting it. But yeah, I mean, I had the spreadsheet and everything because wanting to be around kids
Mhm,
is what settled my soul. It
mhm,
made me feel grounded and whole, and that I was able to give them something,
mhm,
of me, and it felt really, really great. So, you talked about not being perfect, and imperfection is something we all have to accept as we step into any type of human relationship and human connection, and parenting's the biggest one of those of all. What did you realize about behavior? Because I realized it's never going to not exist,
mhm.
right? So, what did you realize about you had your why in place. What did you realize about your children's and your kids in your classrooms behaviors that was different than what everybody else's interpretation was?
Mhm. I realize that kids are so capable. They're so capable and they can achieve so much. But the behaviors we see in kids are a reflection of the environment and the adults that are around them. And I think the most important thing for parents and your listeners and all parents to really understand is we get caught in this cycle of trying to force our kids to listen and force them to cooperate and force them to stay in bed and force them to brush their teeth, so much so that parents lay their kids down and physically brush their teeth. And we're in this force mode, which is so
Mhm.
exhausting for parents. It's so exhausting for kids, and all it's doing is weakening your relationship and bond, which is not what parents are trying to achieve. And what I realized is when you shift what you do as a parent or a teacher or an educator, that's when you shift the child's behavior, not when you try and force them to be the one responsible for it.
So, shifting my behavior shifts their behavior.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a really challenging experience, especially for parents who are caught up in that reactionary cycle,
Mhm,
because they're not the only ones involved. There's just so much perception that's involved with parents who are choosing to do things differently.
mhm. And so much of it comes back from their childhood and all they know, and I say it all the time, parenting is not intuitive, it's a learned skill. And so if you're bringing your childhood, which we're all going to bring to some element to our parenting, and you're not learning new ways and you're just continuing to wake up and say, today I'll do better, today I'll do better, no human can do that without new strategies, new skills, new foundations, new understandings. But anybody's capable of learning the skills if it's something that's really important to them.
All right, now you're tapping into growth mindset, which is one of my favorite places to be. And really, that's the aha moment that most parents that I work with have is that permission to switch off the fixed mindset of this is how it's always been, therefore, this is probably just how it will always be,
Mhm,
to, oh, I get to design this. And skills are learnable for me and for them, and
mhm,
change is possible. It's
mhm,
so freedom based.
mhm, mhm. I think we're trapped so often. This we lose our autonomy in what do we want our kids' childhood to look like? What do we want to be? How do we want to show up? And instead, we get sort of stuck in, but I turned out fine, or my parents, did that and it's okay. And I'm okay from it. And I think sometimes, are we really okay? Or are we not
Mhm,
okay? And what defines okay? And I think there's a lot that goes into that. And so I think learning to just say, what do I want in
mhm.
as a parent for my kids, and how do I want my house to look? And then knowing that you can achieve that if you're willing to commit to it.
Ugh, yes. Yeah, that value-based parenting model. that informs our choices and our interactions with our kids. It's such a special thing. I call it the personalized mission statement, and I encourage everyone in the world to write one
Mhm.
because you set a goal for everything else in your life, and you should do that for your family as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. We set goals in our program every single Monday because we, as humans, we lose track of what we ate for lunch yesterday. So
Yeah.
we need to keep ourselves on track. And as I get older, I'm losing more track. So setting goals really sets that intention. And when you set an intention, you're putting it out into the world, and it's making you focus on what you want to focus on. And I think if we can create some intentions as parents, it helps kind of, you know, not feel so bogged down from all the challenges we're feeling, but we're really focusing in one area because small changes will create really big results.
Always, always. So here on the show, you've listened. I know you have. I really dig deep into those tiny years and the impact we have in the infancy, toddlerhood, and the preschooler years, leading up to that transition of okay, now they're outside of the house practicing these skills on their own in a kindergarten classroom. You have experience with taking kind of that foundational work that we've been talking about and working with older kids and the parents of older kids, tweens and teens. How does this expand to that space when the autonomy piece that you're talking about is much stronger? The independence and the desire to be their own selves is much stronger than when I'm working with parents of an 18-month-old.
Yeah, exactly. So yes, we work with kids from one. We actually all the way up to 22. We had a parent whose son just graduated from Princeton, and she was in our program because she said, "Tia, I didn't solve these challenges when they were younger, and the same
Mhm.
challenges." Exist now, and that's something for parents to know. They're not phases and stages. Yes, our kids go through developmental milestones, and they grow and they develop, but if you're seeing an unwanted behavior, or a cycle of behaviors and challenging behaviors, it just transforms, as you're saying, into the teen years and gets harder to manage. And so, one of the things I like to say to parents, and because we work with such a wide variety of parents, is that it's not the we're not trying to solve the symptoms. Most
Mm.
parents are trying to solve the symptoms. So whether it's a toddler who's refusing to sit on the potty, or a school age kid who won't get off their device, or a teenager who refuses to come home, they're all the same thing. They're all symptoms to the actual problem. And so if we think about symptoms, I'll use the analogy of a headache. And we often will have a headache. And in that moment, we don't like how it feels. So that's the child's behavior. You don't like how it feels as a parent. And so to get rid of the headache, we pop an Advil or Tylenol, and we say, I'm just going to try and get rid of that feeling. I don't want to feel this anymore. But we don't know why we got the headache in the first place. What's causing it? Are we dehydrated, food sensitivity, overstress? Are we having some anxiety or overwhelm? If we don't know why we have the headache, we're never actually avoiding it from repeating and having that cycle. And if we look at our kids' behavior with that same analogy, the symptoms are the unwanted behaviors that we're so frustrated by. And parents are Googling, how do I solve this? How do I stop this? What do I do here? And that's leaving them lost and confused because we can't mask the symptom, the behavior with an Advil or Tylenol without understanding why the behaviors are happening. And one of the root causes of behaviors, which leads back to us shifting our behaviors as parents to shift our children's, is that so many of us are stuck in the punishment cycle. And if we're in the punishment cycle and we haven't learned how to discipline, your teenagers are going to rebel like nobody's business.
Yes. Oh, and you know what? Reverse engineering all that, I find hope because what I know to be true, and you and I both lived it, is that when you prioritize those infant and those toddler years to build the foundations that are healthy and relational and have the boundaries and celebrate the wins, the teenage years are actually kind of fun.
I'm witnessing it. I have a 14-year-old and 16-year-old. They're both 6 feet tall. I'm 5'3". They could pick me up and force me to do something before I could force them. But it is so much fun. it doesn't mean we're not still parenting, but when
Mhm.
you learn to parent in a really positive and effective way where your kids feel respected by you and you have mutual respect from them, you're on the same team. And I
Mhm.
think that's where parents want to be, is on their team versus battling against their kids. They're just not sure how to get there.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, one of the things that I struggle with is the many, many, many labels that have been put on to the word parenting.
Mhm.
Because again, like you're saying, parents are feeling like they're on the struggle bus,
Mhm.
and so they go look to solve that feeling by identifying with being a respectful parent or a gentle parent or a conscious parent or whatever positive parent. And although I love the desire, right? They're obviously seeking what is in your opinion the hard part about putting a label on it and then having this perceived identity that you then have to live up to.
Yeah, I think it puts a lot of pressure on parents. And with social media and all the influence we have, today in our society, it's in front of you all the time. You're seeing these, reality parenting versus, fake Instagrammable photos, and you're trying to compare yourself to all of this. And then there's these terminologies that feel so amazing, but you don't know how to achieve it. And nobody really um, who are catching these Instagrammable posts and these terminologies really understand exactly what it means when you're saying conscious or gentle or positive. And I think to simplify it for parents, it's important for you to know there isn't really a one and done, and you're going to bring your values to parenting from your childhood that you want to bring, and you're going to have your own opinions, and you're going to have your own personality and the way you like to use your language, but everybody can learn the foundations to help create what I like to call mutual respect. And I
Mhm,
think whatever label you want to give it, you got to just think of your core values and what feels good to you. And if it feels good to you the way that you're parenting and it's working and you have mutual respect, amazing. And if it doesn't, because you're ending your days yelling and screaming and holding your child's door shut, and you're feeling like you're dropping them off at school and you feel guilty driving away, then there's ways for you to learn to be more the parent you want to be that aligns with your values. And it doesn't need to be this cookie cutter
mhm.
description that you've read online.
Yeah. So let's talk more about the values because, again, it's a big word. And I know mine, and mutual respect's definitely one of them. And so there's characteristics that we want to really help raise up in our kids. And then there's shared family values. What are some of yours?
Yeah, so characteristics that come to mind are openness. I always want my boys to feel like they can come to me even if they feel like they've made a decision they're not feeling great about. I never want them to feel like I'm going to make them feel worse about their situation, but I'm going to be able to they're going to be able to know they can be open,
Mhm,
supportive, loving, warmth, um, not labeling our kids
mhm,
for what they are, but letting them have the freedom to be who they want to be and to help them strive to be independent and responsible and caring human beings. And I think a lot of those individual kind of characteristics are what we try to create in our home,
mhm,
about showing up for each other and being open and honest. And for me, I think it's really important as a parent to be vulnerable and to be able to say, you know what, I didn't show up great yesterday, and it had nothing to do with you, and it was something that was going on in my grown up world. And being able to apologize to your kids and repair is something that they only learn through role modeling. And I listened to this thing a while back that said, you know, parents will fight in front of their kids, and people will say, well, you shouldn't fight in front of your kids, you should always fight in private. And then there's the mindset of, well, no, you should fight in front of your kids because they have to see that conflict exists in the world and that conflict
mhm.
exists in relationships. And so whether you choose either side of that, you always need to show the repair. And I think sometimes that's the piece that gets lost. And so I think being able to own up to your own mistakes as a
Yeah.
parent to your kids is super empowering.
Oh, I love that. It's interesting you say that because, our children are adults. We have a 20 and a 22-year-old, and when our 22-year-old was a teenager, she had a boyfriend who would spend time at our house, and my husband and I, we wouldn't fight, but, like, we would get in that
Yeah.
disagreement mode about something, whatever it
Mm.
was, and I had my view and he had his view, and then, I don't probably 20 minutes later, after we talked it out, we were cool again.
Mhm.
And we were just back to our normal selves. And my husband was reminding me the other day, he's like, "Do you remember when he used to say to us, oh my gosh, my parents would be on that for days. They would not let it go. They would continue to fight about it, sweep it under the rug, bring it back out again
Mhm.
until they eventually just didn't do anything about it, but it was done, like over."
Mhm.
And I thought, how intuitive is that for this
Mhm.
teenage boy to say out loud, "I'm noticing what it looks like to disagree and then be okay with the fact that you think differently, and it doesn't change your relationship."
100%. And that's such a great example that kids are like giant sponges and they are listening and learning and watching and soaking everything up. And, you said in the beginning that pressure of being a teacher where you're in charge of all of their outcome here. And it sometimes can be very scary, but it can also be super exciting to know that they're really watching you and you can help them achieve so much by what they witness you doing.
Yes, yeah, and you don't have to directly teach anything, you
Oh,
just have to live it. So, to all of those beautiful characteristics that you listed a few minutes ago, what I find so powerful about that is if that is your shared vision for who you'd like your boys to be, well, then it reflects like a mirror back on us. When we show up, well, I guess we better be all of those things
mhm,
too. And so it's kind of like a gut check. If
mhm,
that reactionary mode kicks in, we go, "Oh, wait a minute, that actually wasn't caring or honest or vulnerable. I
mhm,
guess I better reset."
mhm. Absolutely. It's our litmus test and a way for us to really cross check ourselves because we're often asking our kids to, why are you talking like that? And why are you acting like that? And why are you treating your sibling that way? And sometimes we do have to look in the mirror and say, are we doing those things or are we showing up the way that we want them to show up?
It's so wild when I have conversations like this with peers like you, because part of me just feels like this is the most simple and intuitive job on the planet. And then other times I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is just overwhelming and complicated. So I'm thinking that's just how parents in this current culture are also feeling. If I could insulate myself and just live in my own four walls without having to be part of all that or any socials, this would be so much easier.
Mhm. It's a complicated world we live in for sure. And raising kids today, I think, is so different. And I work with a lot of parents who say, "Well, my parents are always saying, well, you should do this and you should do that." And it is hard from generation to generation to really open your mindset and your perspective to be able to shift and understand that things are different today.
Mhm. Yes, and it's time. We're all saying it as much as we can, as loud as we can, and as kindly as we can. And I know I've had many difficult conversations with my parents over the years when my girls were growing up saying, "I love you and I respect you. And you did such an amazing job with the tools you had when I was a child. And I'm choosing differently."
Mhm. Mhm.
And it's okay.
And it's totally okay. And we don't have to do anything for somebody else. And
Yeah.
it's a hard thing to do as a human to say, I'm going to do this for me and my kids. And it might look different than the way I was raised.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for taking some time to share with us the way that you feel and the way that you think and this breadth of knowledge that you bring from the classroom to the home and then back into other people's homes. I'm really grateful for your time.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure for sure.
So, a couple things, Toddler Tribe, that you can do. Um, so, Tia put together a little guide for you, a little bundle, and that link will be right in the show notes. So, you can go check it out. And, whenever I bring a parenting expert or an educator on here, I always make a point to say that we all bring ourselves, our uniqueness to the way that we work with you. And so, my job is to make sure that you always have access to find the person who will help you be the best parent that you want to be. And if that's me, great. And you know what? If it's Tia, that's also really great. Or anyone else that I've brought on the show, because the goal is to change this world one family at a time, and no one human can do that.
No, I wish I could do it. I just don't have enough hours in a day. So we've got to help each other out.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I wanna thank you so much for taking your time to rate and review the show. It means the world to me that you would make that effort.
Absolutely. I've left a 5-star review there, and I think everybody who is listening, it takes 2 seconds to go over there and say something about it because parents need help, and the more that we spend 2 minutes leaving a review, the more people it reaches, the more parents we help, and I think, Kara, with all the time and energy you put in to support parents, it's the least that all of your listeners and listeners can do is to leave a review so that we can spread that word even more.
It's just so lovely. Collaboration at its best, my friends. This is how
Absolutely.
it is. All right. Well, again, thank you so much for the work that you do, your time, your effort, your energy, and your expertise.
Thank you again for having me. It's been a pleasure.
All right, Toddler Tribe, you know what to do. Until our next episode, stay mindful and proactive as we transform the toddler years.